my husband turns into Clark Griswold some point around like November 15th, and it is lit up. Like people do the slow drive by our house, and like neighbors will stop and they're like, "We just love how you decorate." And I'm like, "It's him." It is all him. I offer moral support. I'll encourage, like, do you need any help? Occasionally he'll need help, but no, I think we had at least 7 or 8 trees just outside alone that were completely covered in lights.
And now that
our company sends you a thank you note every December, right? For all the power you're consuming.
They're very happy with me. And now
I'm
YouTube
sure.
knows all about my
Yes,
my
I was just going to say, for those of you out there that are tuning in, wondering if you joined the Christmas channel, actually, this is Tuesday night, Talk Time with TJ, Triple T, number 211 on January 13th, 2026, and here we go. Yes.
With Google Earth, you can detect Lenora's house. It's the brightest spot on the East Coast.
Yes.
Facts.
And for you CDO and OCD purists, some people are allowed to keep their tree up as long as they want. So no letters to mark. So, yes, welcome to Triple T. And we got people joining us on YouTube, which allows me to say, hi, Mom. Mom's up in Minnesota, which has been going bipolar on the weather lately. And down here in Dallas, we're having a wonderful winter, which I hope means we're also going to have a wonderful summer instead of 100 and help me Jesus degrees, but we'll find out. Nothing I can do about it. The people that are running the weather, I would like to send them a couple of notes and a few other things, but that's a whole different topic, and that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Triple T. And back to the people on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, please do me all the quick and easy, no cost to you YouTube favors. Click the subscribe button if you would. Ring the bell so that you know when we're back on the air. And please go through and like some of my videos and leave some comments. I could use a little more love on the videos, but checked out yesterday. So yes, could use a little more comment going on. What else? Got a website I'd love to have you check out. Give me some feedback. You can find that at www.thetswb.com. THETSWB, the tall, skinny white boy. That is me. That is he, and he is I, and that's the way it has been since way before the internet. So whatever you find that doesn't agree with that, well, that's not me. But on there, you'll find some of the stuff that I do. I've been blessed to be able to help a lot of people with a lot of things. I've done many things in my short lifetime. Right, Mom? Uh-huh. And there's a whole list of them on there. If you go to the website and click on the About Me page, and down there is a white tab that right now I believe still says About TJ, but we're going to put some instructions on there. Click the tab and it'll open up a PDF with a little more information about what I've done, where I've been, things I've been able to do with my life that allow me to help people with things like depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief, relationships, corporate coaching, all sorts of stuff, which is why I offer a free, that's right, no cost to you, 30-minute consultation. You can call me up, get a hold of me, we'll set up time, and you have me for 30 minutes to chit-chat and go over what kind of challenges you're up against. And at the end, if I think that I can be of help to you, I will let you know. Also, I promise you, if I think that we are not a fit, I will let you know, and I will do my best to help you find the right person or persons to get you through the challenges that you are facing. Let's see, what else? It's time to introduce the tie of the week. I've been doing this every week since the very first episode in 2004. So we've been through a couple of them. You guys have seen this one before. This is one of my favorites. You may recognize a few of these jokers on here. There's one of my favorites right there, the old Taz. So yeah, a little attitude tie today. Boom, ba boom. Let's see. Anybody got anything cool they would like to share from the last 7 days since we were here? Any updates? Cool stuff? Yes, no, maybe so. Then Nora.
I don't know so much if it's an update. I've definitely I feel like so much has changed, but it's hard to explain. Like all these things that I was doing and all these things that I thought were going to happen aren't. So it's very weird. I didn't know if anybody else was going through like this time gap where you thought you knew what was going to take place and it's nothing like you thought.
Welcome to my life.
Okay.
Yeah, I call those plot twist left turns. That's not exactly how I expected this chapter to go.
Well, it's so interesting because I feel like we talk about like how we planned for our year to go, or the things that we planned for, that we're going to do in our life. And like this one was just.
Yep.
Just me.
Anybody else?
I was saying earlier, I got an echocardiogram today. At
Tell us
the
how
hospital.
good it was.
Yeah, well, I have a heart. That's been validated by
You don't
independent.
say.
But they gave me a shot of something that was supposed to make my blood hemoglobin glow as it went through my heart to illuminate it was supposed to help the technician. So if at any point I was told I may start glowing at any, like radioactive at any point for the next 24 hours because my blood's all lit up. So
it wasn't a shot of Jack Daniels, I'm guessing.
well, they called it luminol, but could have been moonshine,
There you go. Yes. No, I had that done as well, and the doctors were surprised. They had to rush me to my stress test to put in the radioactive stuff to check it out, and the dark mass that they saw on my heart was muscles. You have a very muscular heart. Great flow. I went, good. Now can you leave me alone? I'm good. Anybody else before we get rolling on with the show? Yes, no, maybe so. Holly put in the comments. She feels like she jumped realities a few days ago. Been there, done that. Hope you're enjoying the new reality. Well, if nobody else, then I guess we'll do a little quick overview. For those of you that are watching for the very first time or watching the recording for the very first time, Triple T is a 2-hour show. And the first hour, I do my best to get through 3 topics that I came up with for tonight's show. And then when the second hour shows up, we change gears a little bit, and it's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic, and then I let anybody on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And after everybody is answered, if I feel that there's still something I can add to the topic, that's when I toss in my two centavos, and then we just let her roll until the 2 hours are up. Let's see. So that means it's time to introduce the topics of the week. Topics for Triple T number 211, the sentence, tuition, and changes. Jumping right into it, the sentence. And no, this is not an English class. For those of you that have been around Planet Triple T for a while, you know that a majority of my topics actually come from my work with clients, and this is one of them. And the sentence is kind of like, I guess, a Merle Haggard song, where he says that it doesn't matter how much time, they'll always know that I did the crime, and everywhere I go, I've got this mark over me, and sometimes we have the habit of putting a sentence on other people and not really giving them credit for the ability to change. And one of my clients who has graduated Triple P, the perfect person, perfect partner protocol. Well, remember how I talked about as my clients go through Triple P, sure enough, the first year they're going to meet at least 2, usually 3 of the best person ever, until they realize that no, they met this person at this level and they kept climbing. Well, sure enough, this was they met this person, and then they found out that was not their person. And just like we talked last week about bullets, they commenced to telling their family and their friends about all the bad things about this person. And then a year went by, and this person had witnessed enough of their changes to work on themselves and change themselves. And they got back together, and my client is like, they have changed so much, but my family hates them. I said, well, where'd they get the bullets for that? Yep, they handed their family all the bullets that they needed to make sure that they were still sentenced to a life of their past. And finally, today I told my client to ask their family, am I the same person I was 5 years ago? The answer is obviously a hard no. Then what are the chances that this person may have changed? Because I wouldn't be dumb enough to date the same loser that I told you about over a year ago. So they've changed. And you guys have changed as well. How long of a sentence does this person have to serve? And that, of course, flipped the switch where they were like, oh. I said, they're being the judge and the jury without any facts. They're just, you did this. Well, how long of a crime, how long do they have to pay the time for the crime? And then another plot twist, left turn. They announced that while they were with their person this weekend, their person received a text from somebody they were dating in the interim. And my client was like, so I just stepped out of the room. And it really got to me, to the point where I was starting to feel nauseous. And when their person came back in the room, my client's like, you know what? I think I'm going to leave. And they're like, what? It was their birthday. I sent them a little something to say happy birthday, and I'm not dating them. We're not seeing each other. And so I told my client, how long is your person going to have to live this sentence for their past and what happened before you met them? I said, you're not 17 anymore. Chances are when you go out in the dating pool, if you get rid of this person, the next person that you date, good chance they've maybe been out with a few other people. Now, if you had just started dating this person 6 months ago and you knew nothing about who they had been with before, would that little phone call have lit you up as much as this one did? Well, just with our history, I said, yes, I know. The history that you put a sentence on. Well, I've been hurt in the past. Yes, and so now you're going on your own sentence. How long are you going to punish yourself for the things that you went through when you were young? Kind of like buying a different car. Except you don't get to see the mileage on it. You just know how old the car is. And even if you were crazy enough to find a partner who has never dated before, oh my gosh, where did they live? That's a little freaky, a little weird. But for whatever reason, they've never dated before. Even new cars have flaws. In fact, a lot of the new cars are proving to have more flaws than the older cars. And I think that metaphor can be taken in a couple of different ways. Just saying.
I love the appropriateness of the sirens in the background.
Oh, yes, the song of 917. And what if, being you brought that up, what if sirens did go off when all of a sudden something from your past popped up? You're like, oh my gosh, oh, you're just like that person I dated back in 10th grade. Woo!
How different would that be if those uncomfortable feelings, people started to recognize them as like, oh, that's just the alarm system going off to remind me that something like this happened in the past. And, does the alarm system need to be going off right now?
Mm-hmm. And seeing as how I was single till I was 50 something, I'd been in enough relationships that
Then we could say unmarried.
unmarried, yes. I was unmarried until I was 50 something. And yeah, if I went by all of that stuff, I don't know if I would have really been able to have a relationship. Because at some point, you're like, it'd be like wanting to drive a car, but oh my God, there was this one car I had. I got a flat tire. I can't drive cars now. They get flat tires. And this one car I drove ran out of gas. I can't drive cars. Cars run out of gas.
Isn't it so funny how quickly we're able to say something like that about a relationship, but other things we might not be able to say how quickly?
Yeah.
Like for a car, you're like, oh, well, yeah, it's a car. But for a relationship, you're like, oh, but it's my heart. No, 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 no.
And that's where I had to reframe it for my client and go, at this point, it's not feasible to say you're going to get a brand new car. You're going to get used cars. You don't know how it was driven before. You don't know what condition the transmission's in. Mark just found out his fuel pump is doing great.
Yay, Mark!
So, how much are you going to allow things like that pop up to turn into major events? You might, but even in relationships, marriages, stuff like that pops up. Well, Bob and Sally have never had a flat tire. As far as you know, you don't know. They look good on Facebook. Lenore, you got your hand up.
I definitely agree with that about things are, I say that all the time. You never know what's going on behind closed doors. And oh, social media, how misleading you are. Oh, heavens. The other thing that I was going to add when you're like, oh, this got a flat tire. Also, you don't know what kind of transmission you're going to have. It's a couple of things in here. So what are the stories you're telling yourself about how you can handle a transmission or how you can handle a car? And also something that I've been saying a lot, a lot over the last 6 months, is it'll be okay. No matter what, it'll be okay. If you're thinking, even in the worst case scenario of whatever that might be, you will be okay. You can figure it out. And I often say this when I travel, there is nothing you can come up against. As long as you have a passport, a cell phone, and a credit card, you can do anything you want when you travel. You can solve any single problem. It might cost you, but you can solve any single problem with a phone, a passport, and a credit card. And ultimately, you will be okay. So even if whatever story you're telling yourself of, I can't find somebody, or the transmission, what about that transmission is, or that couple doesn't go through anything, or whatever it might be. Either way, come back to you and your stories and recognize that even on your worst days, You still survived and you were still okay.
And that's why the time and date protocol works so well,
Very much so.
because proven to people that, hey, look at the time and the date. You've made it this far. There is nothing from your past that you are not stronger than. But the stuff that you've gone through, how long do you plan on beating yourself up for what happened back there?
How long is the sentence?
Yes, how long is the sentence? And if you can't deal with that, then go back and change it. Well, I can't change it. Then yes, you can't. Mark.
Yeah, I was thinking about, again, the sentence, and your car metaphor. Again, no relationship comes with a warranty,
Right.
and but the squirrels came by and whispered, yeah, so what are some of the things you could say about your car, your old car, but that you can't say about your relationship? Get away with. Yeah, this thing, I gotta kick it a few times to get it to move, But yeah, I mean, some people are married to their cars. They, like I said, they're, and the sentence you have to endure is, like I said, there's going to be breakdowns, there's going to be wear and tear on the interior and the exterior. So it doesn't look as quite as bright and shiny as it did when you first bought it. But, that's the sentence that you have to endure, is that, things change. And, in relationships, things change, but, they settle down and you kind of get comfortable with how things are in the relationship. They're not as bright and shiny and hot and heavy as they were at the beginning, but that's the sentence that
Yes.
you know.
And the other thing is, they take maintenance. Both
Oh,
of them require maintenance. If you don't do any maintenance on a relationship, but you keep beating up the other person over something that happened in the past, that's not a good recipe for keeping the vehicle or the relationship running. Holly.
Hopefully you can hear me.
There we go.
Okay, good. Oh gosh, my mind is just running a million miles a minute, and I've probably shared all of this before, but I'm going to share it again. So the first thought that's coming to my mind is it is important in all this to remember that, if you have somebody new in front of you, don't put them under a sentence, but make sure you actually have somebody new in front of you is the first thought I have. So I'm thinking about, there's a channel I watch called The Marriage Helper. And basically this couple, the husband cheated on his wife and went off with his mistress, and that didn't work out. And he did ultimately come back with his wife, and they started a company for helping people deal with infidelity. But one of the things they talk about is it's not for everybody. Not everybody's right. He had to work on himself. She had to work on herself, so that when they came back together again, they were not the same two people getting back together again. And, that is an absolutely critical point. But one of the things they talk about is, if you say, whatever it is they did to me, that's too much. I can't have it back in my life. It's too hurtful. It's going to trigger me. You do not owe anybody to let them back into your life. But if you decide to let them back into your life, you have to give them a reasonable way forward. Because, they talk about the couple that stays together and they have, one person has an affair, and 30 years later, they can't let it go, but they stuck with the person. And both of them are miserable because of it. And once again, it's not if you keep having an affair over and over and over again, you keep repeating the betrayal, whatever it may be, over and over and over again, I'm going to ignore that repeated betrayal. But if you've genuinely put forward a path and they've genuinely followed it, that you've got to honor that, and you've got to say, we're going to start over and we're going to be two different people. Dr. John Maloney, I think it's his name, talks a lot about, what you had before, the relationship you had before, is dead. It no longer exists. The question is, are you going to build something new going forward? And you can't say that the new thing is based on the old thing. It has to be new. But anyway, there's two shows that keep coming to my mind. I'm sure I've shared this before. And by the way, there are spoilers on this. I've been told once that the rule is if it's over 20 years, you're allowed to do spoilers. But the first one is a Stargate episode. And there's a character named Teal'c, which is kind of a high overview of this episode. He had previously killed somebody in this town, and they come back to this town, and they put him on trial for the murder, basically. And then they have this experience where basically Teal'c has to basically save the town. And then he comes back to take his judgment. And the son of the person that he killed says to him when he comes back, "I have made a mistake. My memory was faulty. You are not the same man as he who murdered my father." And then Teal'c says, "I am the one." And the guy says, "No, that man is dead. You have killed him." And I just, every time I think of that, it's just because the person shares the same meat suit does not mean they are the same person.
Yes.
But you actually need evidence that they're not the same person. And then just one other TV show that's even older. In the Dick Van Dyke Show, there's an episode where his brother, basically he's not been good with women. He's brand new to the whole dating scenario. And he asks out a girl and she rejects him. And there's just this scene where he keeps saying over and over again, "Nobody knows how I feel. Nobody knows how I feel." And finally his brother comes up to him and says, "Everyone knows how you feel." And he says, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yeah, and so anyway, I was thinking about the social media thing. You look at it and you think, nobody's going through this, but chances are, not only is it probably other people are going through it, but for a lot of things, probably a good percentage of the population, or possibly, depending on what it is, maybe even almost everyone knows it. You just don't know it because people aren't talking about it. So if you ever feel alone, don't forget that. But it also doesn't mean it's, the final nail in the coffin, that you can't have success or anything. It's just, this is your first time experiencing it, so it just seems new. But that doesn't mean it's uncommon or that it can't be survived.
Great stuff, as always. And what it also had my squirrels bring up is, okay, so you got this car that had a transmission problem. Well, I'm going to get rid of this one and I'm going to get a different one. This one, that other one is shiny. Well, it could have a transmission problem as well. Or other problems. At least you know what is up with the car that you have right now. Same with relationships. If your person did something and it's not at this level of, atrocity, you get to decide, can you live with that? Can they change? But just remember, if you're going to throw them away and go find somebody else, you're walking into unknown territory. And, it's been a couple of times that I've seen, especially when people get this internal program and they start, of course, dating the same person in a different meat suit. Oh, a new shiny. They're going to be much better. You don't know. But you couldn't hold the other person because you knew what they did and you put a sentence on them that they will never be able to outlive. If it's a life sentence for something that they did, you better test the other person and make sure that they didn't do the same crime. But then people will justify, well, they didn't do it to me. Oh, okay. So because they didn't do it to you, does that mean that they're reformed? Or you don't recognize the crime because it didn't happen to you this time. Mark put in infidelity, the Greek god representing faith. Yes. Any other comments, ahas, epiphanies on the sentence before we try and fit in another one? Just no, maybe so. Okay. On to the next topic, tuition. What is tuition? I know some of you know what tuition is.
The price you pay for education.
Yes, the price you pay for education. And certain education comes with different education comes with different prices. And as a teacher, trainer, instructor, I know that I have different prices for different things that I teach. But there's also those lessons, those life lessons. Oh, those wonderful life lessons that come with different tuitions. And at sometimes I wish that life would be able to just charge people cash. And the reason I say that is I think people would put more value onto the lessons that they have learned. There's so many life lessons that you watch, especially friends and family. They have to learn the lesson over and over and over and over. You're just like, are you ever gonna learn? Oh my goodness. Mark put in the comments, experience is the best teacher, but experience is so expensive. Yes. Time and again, it'd be one thing if, I'll leave this up to a discussion for you guys. Do you think that people would catch on quicker if they had to pay tuition for some of those lessons and get one of these pieces of wallpaper to hang up to go, hey, you took the class, you paid the price, keep the lesson? But I think because it was just one of those things I survived, they don't really absorb the lesson nearly as much as they could, should, or would. Mark?
Yeah, do you think relationships should have a learner's permit situation where you learn, you get into a relationship and you get, after a certain amount of time you get a permit, but it's not a permanent thing. It can, like I said, unless you the whole idea of having a learner's permit, especially in marriage, maybe it's 2 years, and then you figure out, okay, is this working now? Okay, well, we'll just let it go. But maybe relationships in general should have a learner's permit.
Well, the funny thing is, when would we start handing them out? Because, man, I remember having a crush on somebody in 6th grade. Would that be the start of the tuition on the learner's permit for relationships? Or, like, what? And yet there are so many other things that are out there that need to be learned, that we think we know what we need to learn. And when I was working, taking care of college houses, and trying my darndest not to be judgmental of taking care of college houses around San Diego State University. And I'm watching some of these kids taking classes, and this is not a joke, this is for real. One kid that I know, his major was in African tribal dance. And I said, okay, that's your major. When you graduate college and you pay your tuition, what kind of work are you gonna? Where do you apply those lessons, that knowledge? I don't know. I've been through a lot of stuff. Again, if you go to my website and click on the About Me tab and open up that PDF, I've paid a lot of tuition for a lot of different classes, and very little of it was paying cash. Most of it was OJT, on-the-job training, and the University of Life, and all of those fun things. So in that arena, I guess my tuition was life and time, and recognizing the lessons as such and hanging on to them and making sure that I actually did my best to apply the knowledge that I've accumulated in my short years. But I've also witnessed a number of people, and some of them have become clients, that didn't seem to have the ability to recognize the lessons that they had paid for, and as such had troubles applying them until they worked with me, where I could have them go back over the archives and realize that no, you had actually you paid dearly for a number of lessons, and you still have them, and you're doing nothing with the knowledge. In fact, some of them were taking the knowledge and using it against themselves, which I guess in a way is almost like paying double or triple tuition. How many people do you know that have had to go through the same thing over and over and over and over, and you're like, didn't you pay for that like last year and the year before and the year before? You're paying a lot of tuition on a lesson that I learned one time. I don't know, Mark.
Yeah, sometimes working with people, like I said, I give the metaphor that life is a 10-foot wall. Um, the and you got to get over that wall. And some people, they get help. They get it's usually the people who have to pay the highest tuition have to crawl and claw, and and once they get over that wall called life, they appreciate every inch of the climb. But some people, they get boosted over the wall. They have other people to make it easy for them. Put a ladder there, and they don't pay much of a tuition in this metaphor.
Yeah.
For that to get over that. If they're making it too easy, so they don't pay much tuition to, to get over that wall called life. But it's the ones that have to climb and claw all the way up that appreciate the climb, and they've paid a huge tuition to get over that wall.
My squirrels are going crazy right now because yes, some of the kids who grew up with helicopter parents and the overly protective never got the lesson when it was at kids price. The kids' lessons come with the kids' price. Climb a tree, you fall out, you bounce. You get into an argument with your friend, you figure it out. But we see so many kids these days. Bobby called me a dirty boo-boo, and right away mom's on the phone to Bobby's mom going, your son has to apologize to my kid, and this better not happen again, or da-da-da-da-da, and the kid doesn't learn the lesson while it's coming at a kid's price. It's not until later on he has to learn the kid's lesson at the adult price. And the kid's price combined into one. It costs him even more. Lenora.
I had seen Mark's thing. I stepped away for a quick second. Mark had put, experience is the best teacher, but experience is so damn expensive, of which I thought it was a great quote. And I also like the one where words don't teach, only life experience teaches. And especially when it comes to kids, I always remember people, now please keep in mind, I do not have children, but I do remember people saying, small kids, small problems, big kids, big problems.
Yeah. The price of the lesson. Let your kids pay for their tuition at kids' prices while they're a kid. Holly.
So I think I've mentioned I've been getting a little bit into astrology lately, and this is not to say, this will work whether you believe in astrology or not, no matter what you believe. You don't have to believe the same things I do. It's just the principle that matters. But a couple things. So first of all, what was told to me in the training I was doing was astrology is kind of like a weather report. So, I might say to you, it's going to rain heavily tomorrow. But, whether you have an umbrella or not, whether you actually need to go out or not, there are other factors besides just the weather report that matter. So I'm going to throw that out there first. But anyways, they talk a lot about certain life lessons that, you've got like your core wounding and you've got some of these other things. But this was a hypothetical discussion, but we got talking about that if there's something you're supposed to learn in this life, a lot of us, think this is too hard because it's going to be something challenging. If it's something that you're meant to learn that's tailored to you, it's something that's going to be challenging. And a lot of us want to, I had an office teacher who used to always, when I say office, I mean Microsoft Office, who used to always say, you can learn it the easy way, or you can learn it the hard way. You could do it the easy way, you could do it the hard way. And it actually doesn't matter which way you do it. It will get done either way. It just matters how much effort you want to have to put into it. But the idea was that if it's one of those core lessons we need to learn, the first time it comes very softly. And then we could choose to lean into it and learn it, or we could say, you know what? I don't want to deal with that. I can't look at that. That's too hard. So you ignore it. So then the second time it comes around a little bit louder. And then you say, oh, I'm going to learn it. I'm going to ignore it. And it keeps, every time it comes back a little bit stronger. So you've got the option where you've ignored it until it hits you so hard you can't ignore it anymore. And now you're dealing with it for the very first time because you've ignored it every other time. Or, this was the interesting thing, because, it's like, this is your calendar, this is what's scheduled. It wasn't that the lesson doesn't keep coming up. It's that if you take the first opportunities to learn it when it's easier, When it comes back again, you're just refining a little bit, and you're just refining a little bit more, but you've already learned the lesson, you've already learned the principle. So when it comes back into your life, it's not as hard to deal with. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thought. And then the other quote is kind of based. This came from that same teacher, but he's talking about there's different ways you can learn it. The cheapest way you can ever learn something is vicariously through somebody else's experience.
Yeah.
And that's what we do when we pay tuition to go to a training. We're paying the cheaper price in terms of time, in terms of effort, to learn vicariously that's something that somebody else has already figured out. And a lot of people see that as expensive, and I can't pay that tuition, which is fine. Maybe it's not something you care about too, but it's always going to be more expensive if you have to learn it firsthand. But the cheapest time to learn it then is as soon as possible, rather than putting off till tomorrow what you don't want to learn today. So once again, just a theory. Who knows if it actually works that way, but I will say in my life, it does seem to work that way. So, every time you say, I'm not ready to learn it, and I'm going to just ignore it, ask yourself, okay, am I ready to learn it even stronger next time, or would it be easier to learn it now while it's easier to learn?
Great stuff. Again, it's the same reason why I tell people, if you have time to learn something and you can afford it, learn it. If somebody offers to teach you or show you something and you have time, learn it. You guys have heard me say many times, if I had the time and somebody was offering a free lesson in underwater basket weaving, I'd probably take it. People are like, what? Why do you want to be a basket weaver? I don't. But A, I've never seen it. I don't know how to do it. But B, it could be 5 years down the road and somebody's building something and I look at it and go, if you weave it this way, it'll be much stronger. And they're like, well, how do you know that? I took this class in underwater basket weaving one time and the knowledge stuck with me. Now, those of you that really know me know that I don't know how to play video games. I suck at even Pac-Man. Seriously. And people are like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. I went, yeah, but I never figured out how to make money playing Pac-Man or any of the video games. So I went uptown to the mechanic shop and hung out with a mechanic and learned how to fix cars when I was 11 and started working in the shop when I was 12. And for those of you that want to complain about child labor, shut up. Stop typing. I was there because I was passionate about it and I loved it, and it kept me from getting into trouble, and I made some money. And I learned a lot of really good skills. Mike.
Hey, one of the things that I look back when I was a kid is I was experiencing life in a difficult way. Other people experience life under the same conditions and are able to deal with it well. I wasn't. So I was dysregulated. So I didn't have room in my reality to be able to add any more lessons. I was just trying to survive. I was just trying to make it through the day. And so I think some of the conditions of being able to add in new lessons, especially something that is a core lesson, is if you have room in your reality, the energy or the self-actualization to be able to do that, and the ability to implement it. And what are your thoughts?
Well, one of the things that we have as an advantage as adults now is to look back at what we survived and extract just the lessons from it and leave the stories to be whatever we want them to be. Have you paid the sentence? Is the sentence over? And you've survived. Now you get the opportunity as an adult to go, Yeah, I learned some really hard lessons. I learned that life isn't fair. I learned that life can be sucky. I learned that, but I also learned that I can make it through that I can survive that kind of stuff. What can I do with that knowledge? What do I want to do with that knowledge? And if there's something else that I want, do I have the ability to pay the tuition for the class? And I've got a perfect question for you, Mike. Have you learned anything from Triple T?
Absolutely, yes.
What was your tuition?
What time?
Time. Yes. You paid with your time and with your choices and with deciding whether or not what you heard on here was acceptable, applicable, desirable to add to your lesson box to make your life either better or worse.
And I guess what I'm bringing to the table here is just if an individual wants or is presented with a lesson, first, I think it's to be able to look at the ground rules or are these factors to see whether or not it is a viable ability to be able to learn these things. And if not, make room, get more energy,
Mhm.
or be able to do the groundwork in order for the lesson to come in. I guess that's what I'm bringing to the table.
Well, and uh, correct me if I'm wrong, I think also I'm hearing some people will take experiences from the past and create a story that it's hard for them to learn things. Or because this stuff happened to me in the past, I can't move into this realm of the world, or I can't move into this status change, or I can't become this person because this happened back then. And I know you tuned in a little bit after we got started, which also applies to the self sentence. How long do you want to punish yourself for what occurred in the past? Whether that be excuses, whether that be situations, whether that be limitations, whether that be lifestyles, whether that be any of the above, if you're willing to put in the time and find ways to pay the tuition, whether it be time or money or whatever, people have the ability to rise above it. I know because I've gone through a couple of things myself, and then you look at some of our more inspirational people that, if the nice thing about the internet versus all the bad things about the internet, if you need inspiration, all you got to do is pull up some stories of people that have some of the stuff that people. Viktor Frankl, oh my gosh, had every excuse on the planet to not make it, to give up, to be minimal. And look at what we've learned from his experiences. And so maybe collecting your experiences in your life and all that stuff and sharing it with others could be a way of utilizing your past to make the world a better place.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. And I think really it's just there's a frequency to that mindset, and being able to raise your frequency to be able to chunk up, to be able to change that is where I'm trying to bring that to. So kind of my thought, if that makes sense. So yeah,
Yeah.
so thank you. That's good.
And Mark brought up magic frame. Yeah, that's another one of the protocols that we often use for stuff like that. And Holly's got her hand up, and it's at the top of the hour. Um, Holly, I'll let you uh, comment. I'm just going to let people know that this is when we normally switch gears and go into the second hour where everybody on the call is allowed to bring up a question or a topic. And I let everybody on the call answer first. But we're going to start it off with Holly's comment on what we were talking about just before we got to the top of the hour.
I'll try to make this fast so we could get into the next. But I just want to say, Mike, thank you so much for bringing that point up, because it made me also think of. So first of all, Dean Graziosi, I know I've said this a million times, but my number one takeaway from him is we think it's what we add to our life that's what matters most, but he actually says the harder thing is figuring out what to subtract from your life. That could be the harder lesson. But also going through the astrology, it talks about you have your different transits, and your Saturn transits are all about surviving and about stability and learning to say no. And so, yes, there are going to be your Jupiter transits where it's, I've got excess time, I've got excess money, I'm going to sign up for all these courses, I'm going to, learn. But the Saturn transits are just as important for learning, but they may not feel like active learning because what you're learning is, I need to be more balanced. I need to say no. I need to take a step back and just focus on my health. I need to take a step back and, engage minimally. I need to focus on my exercise. I need to focus on just getting out of this house alive because I'm a kid and, I'm in a toxic environment. That counts as learning just as much as anything else. And you might even be learning more valuable, more difficult lessons doing that. And so it's fine to count that as your class that you're taking right now. And it's just as valuable. Never undervalue it just because you're learning what to cut out of your life, or just because you're having to learn to survive. Learning to survive is the most valuable lesson of all. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yes, and survival mode is a classroom. I know, I've been in it a couple of times. And tuition is high, lessons are strong. And when you come out the other side, it's up to you to decide what you're going to do with what you learned while you were in there. And I know it's not easy. I let it put me into survival mode and the comfort zone for quite a while. So now we got Elijah joining us. Wow, awesome. Missed you, brother. Welcome back. And you joined us just in time for the second hour. So if you got a question or a topic that you'd like to toss at the crowd, you're welcome to. We're actually waiting for a question or a topic to... Oh, I've been here the whole time. Hiding in the shadows. Lenora's got her hand up.
And definitely for Miss Holly, because I think you just said something that was really, really powerful. Subtracting from your life. Over the last month, so like without going into too many details, some people that I was coaching, I've had a big old shift in my life, and some of the people that I was coaching, I actually shared with them that I wouldn't be able to work with them for a period of time. And it was extraordinarily, and it still is very, very strange to go from talking to these people every single week for at least an hour and hearing all about their lives to like just texting, or like then hearing about it every other week or something like that. And it's been very, very different. And I like to think, and this is the story that I'm telling myself, that I am in a transition period. And when you said subtracting from your life, because I knew I was going fast. I knew that everything was just very, very busy. And now things seem busy, but slow busy. So like, is that a thing? I didn't know that was a thing. And just the way you had shared that. So I was curious to know if anybody else is experiencing that, or how they experience when they go from working with people and they go from coaching with people, and then they go on a hiatus with them for a period of time. How do you all do? What are your thoughts?
Great question. Who's got an answer for Lenora? Nobody's ever experienced anything like this? Holly's got her hand up.
So I will say I haven't experienced that exact situation because I don't specifically work with clients. But I think that first of all, it absolutely is a phase. So I'm just gonna call it like a transition phase. And I think the first question of how you approach it is going to depend how much of it is a conscious choice, and you know this is the new path that you're choosing, and it just feels different, versus how much you feel it got forced on you, if that makes sense. And I think in both cases, it could be very healthy. It's bringing you where you need to be. But if you feel like life is forcing you in this direction, you may need to take a moment and sit down and say, okay, is this meant to be? Is this intended? Is this, and some of that could just be sitting, we talk about the 6 dynamics of an unconscious response, where, it answers first, it answers quietly, you always feel the urge to edit it, what just came up, all of those things. If you ask yourself, is this the path that I'm meant to be going down? Is this a positive path? Is this a positive change? And if the answer comes up as yes,
Yeah.
then, do you need to grieve what used to be? Do you need to sit down and say, what am I meant to learn? Who am I meant to be? Like I said, I've been doing all this astrology stuff. Another thing I've been looking at is most of the signs have a lesser developed and a more developed version. And so my sign is Scorpio. So that one I always knew was the Scorpion's the baby version, the Eagle's the middle version, and the Phoenix is the more advanced version. But I actually started getting into my ascendant because that kept coming up, and my ascendant sign is Leo. And I couldn't believe how triggering it was for me to read the difference between a young Leo and an advanced Leo, because the young Leo has got this, if you think Betty White, my first thought was Betty White's an ascendant Leo. I looked her up, she was. But, so your ascendant is how you present to the world. A lot of people think it's your sun sign is how you present to the world, but it's actually your ascendant. But, the Leo likes to be fun and playful and, but they're very, very childish and innocent and naive.
Mm-hmm.
And what was coming up is, I am moving from that innocent, naive, playful version to a little bit more of a mature, playful version, because Leo is very playful, whatever. And it did feel like a death. And, when I actually sat with it, I realized, yes, this mature version is a better version.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm having to let go of some childish versions of myself, and that I still need to say first of all, how can I grieve the loss of what I feel like I genuinely am losing? But second of all, how can I also incorporate that into this more advanced version of myself? And a lot of it is the big word for a lot of the signs is balance. Am I becoming a more balanced version of myself? Which means I'm not actually giving up the thing, I'm just giving up doing it out of balance. And I'm moving into a version of myself that I have more aspects. So it's still going to be here. It's still going to be a beautiful part of my life. And I think we've talked about different love languages. And, I'm the kind of person, if somebody needs to talk, it's like, please talk. I just, I'd prefer to spend time with somebody and go to dinner or, have quality time rather than lots of little tiny talk. But, it's like, if anybody actually needs it, now it's meaningful, let's do it kind of thing. So I think that's another thing too, is just, if you're ever in a place where you need, you've got your tribe, if you need to fill that cup, if you need, and you're not getting it the normal way, they can help tide you over. They can help build that bridge to keep you in balance and keep feeding you what you need while you're maturing, if that makes sense. Because sometimes we need the childish need to be to fed, even though, while it's still there. The need's still there, and it's okay that the need's still there. And it's okay to ask for people to help you fill it as you're learning to fill it in a more mature, more balanced, more meaningful, deeper version of yourself. So it's that combination of also, what am I looking forward to? What is going to be even better once I incorporate this and become the new version of myself? And if you could find one or two things that you could focus on, sometimes that can make the transition more meaningful and better.
I love that. Thank you, Holly.
Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mark.
Always hard to follow Holly.
Yes.
But sometimes, Lenora, we go through periods of transition and change. And what you were talking about, again, learning what to let go of triggered something that I was thinking about last week about, the metaphor of the guy who spins the plates. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, that may mean you're spinning too many plates.
Yeah.
So healthily, what do you need to let go of so that, you can keep the other plates from crashing to the ground?
Yeah.
And
you've mentioned that
that
before too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, some
like-
people, like I said, they take on too much. They spin too many plates and they're running
Yeah.
back and forth, hither and yon. And you can only do it for so long before your resources dry up and then all the plates crash to the ground.
Yeah.
So
Right. You all are
sometimes,
absolutely right.
So that, learning to let go, might be one of the most valuable life lessons that we learn.
I like the way you said it, much better than Frozen.
One thing that crossed my mind is there are so many different styles of relationships. And this is another one. But at the core of it, we have to remember that people come into our lives for reasons, seasons, and lessons. And sometimes those seasons can be even as short as 5-10 minutes. And I look back at the number of people that I've been blessed to meet, learn from, spend time with, and some of them, in all my travels, that was part of why my Facebook account was up to 3,600 people, because I'm one of those people that like to stay in touch with people that have graced my life. And so I would actually go through old address books and things like that and try to find them, so at least I have some type of connection to them. And with what you're going through, it's no different. Do I have the time or the capacity to stay in touch with everybody that has ever crossed my life before? No. Not possible. Are there a number of them that I miss? Yes. Are there a number of them that I think about? Yes. Even some of them that were in my life for a very short time. So hopefully that helps answer some of your questions. Anybody else? Time for another question or a topic? Mark.
Yeah, I have a question. Ran into this situation recently where one of my clients started seeing a couples therapist, and it's hard enough to probably you guys that do, exclusively telehealth to get that rapport going, and be able to feel the connection with your clients. But he had a couple session where he was in his office, she was in her office, and the therapist was in their office. And I was just thinking, like I said, that just complicates the vector so much more. He felt like, he didn't feel like it was beneficial because, like I said, there was, when they're talking, can get a lot of stuff out face to face, but this situation, I just think complicates the vector exponentially. He's in his office, she's in her office, and therapist is in their office. I can't imagine, and I don't know if you guys have experienced that splitting dynamic being essentially beneficial. And I just want to know if any of you guys have done it and whether or not that paradigm is, workable for the work we do.
Lenora, got an answer?
When it comes to that, I do think that there is something to be said in person, but I will say that in person, it does go both ways, that it can be helpful and it also can be inhibiting if other people aren't coming into the space with an open mind, with the clear intentions. I think all those matter, and all that prep work on each person really does matter, especially like if you're falling out of one meeting and then going into a couples meeting of something with your significant other and another therapist. I don't think that people can necessarily get quite as into that headspace and heart space as they want to have those conversations. So I do think the prep work does matter. Brent Baum had a very interesting approach. He did not do couples, but in the fact that he would, what he considered, connect with the energy. He would, and he teaches this as to the practitioners for HMR. So opening that up, I can see how certain people can create that energetic flow via Zoom or online. And I can also see how people can make that energetic flow in person, and also how they can be inhibited in both ways. So I do find it very, very interesting. I hands down would say prep work, clearing yourself as the practitioner, clearing yourself as the clients going in. It really does make a huge difference.
Good answer. Holly.
Sounds good. Becoming a conduit.
Yes.
Absolutely. So I had an interesting thought on this. Now, I've done minimal work. I have done it, but I've done minimal work with actual couples. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. But my first thought with this, I was actually thinking of what Dr. David Snyder talked about when he had a dissociative identity disorder that he was treating, commonly known as multiple personality disorders. And he talked about, what do? I show up and I treat each individual personality like it's its individual client. And that's how you treat it. And, I also was thinking of Jordan Peterson when he talks about talking to a crowd. He doesn't talk to the crowd. He finds individuals in the crowd and addresses them and shifts his attention. Even when you're working on a single human being, often you may need to, separate the identities and talk to, the younger version, the older version, the head, the heart, the gut, however it is you're splitting it up. So the first thought that kind of comes to my mind is when we're dealing with a couple, you might have, say a typical relationship where you have, like, say, a husband, a wife in the marriage. Those are three different entities, but it's really not any different than when we're doing any other work where somebody might have their head, their heart, their gut, or they might have younger or, newer person. And so there are times when you need to treat them individually, but there are also times when you need to bring them together and treat them as a whole unit and let them actually talk to each other if you want to get anywhere. So, I mean, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I think a lot of the confusion often comes into our minds as the practitioner, where we try to make it too complicated and we try to think of it as being something we've never dealt with before. But I do think what Lenora said, about the biggest key takeaway is everybody there needs to be a willing participant. So if you have one person who actually wants to change and the other person's just there because they've been threatened or whatever the case may be, which is sadly the case in a lot of cases, and I'm thinking of some specific cases, but it's never going to work. We're here to facilitate the change. We're here to hold the space, but they are the ones that have to do the work, and that's true whether you work with somebody who has multiple personality disorder. That's true whether you're talking to the head brain or the younger person. We're still just holding the space. But so I mean, I really go into the work of the Gottmans. That's my go-to when it comes to actually working on the dynamic between people. But if you have two people that aren't coming in as whole people anyway, and they're talking over each other and they don't even understand why they're saying what they're saying, I don't think you're going to get anywhere. So I do think there's huge value to working with each person individually. But at some point, just like you need to bring all your personalities and have them talk to each other in a council, at some point, you're also going to need to work on them together. So I do think you could do all three, but like I said, I don't think it has to be any different than working on an individual person. It's still the same principles involved, I think, as long as everybody's there willingly.
Good answer. Lenora.
Mark, so more than a couple of weeks ago. Side note, my husband says a couple of weeks ago, and usually that's like a 2-week time frame, and he could be talking about 6 years ago. And I'm like, that's not a couple of weeks ago. So Mark, a number of months ago, you had sat here and said that you were flowing, I believe it was flowing energy to each of us, and you were in such a beautiful space of seeing people. And I think that's also something that, especially when we go on to when we get to work with clients or when we go on a Zoom call, whatever it is, I think that's a beautiful thing to do. And there was Steve Ream during Chicago. He did a prep of what that would look like connecting with somebody before your call, and just and he didn't even have us imagine the client. He had us imagine someone that we cared deeply about, that was not in a relationship with, and that was definitely a huge key, because you do not want to be flowing that sort of energy to your client. So choose somebody that you care about, that you're not in a intimate relationship with. And you could definitely feel the shift when we were just practicing in the room, and you could hear other people hearing their insights about that. And I think that goes right in alignment with the prep work, or even when we get on these calls. And I tell you guys, I look forward to Tuesdays all the time, and just how many insights we have, and just the conversations and what other people will share. So I think that also goes into us going into client work and still setting the highest intention. And I mentioned this the other week, the highest intention or the highest frequency. I used to think, especially for when you hear something like for our highest good, and my highest good could be world peace for everybody. And these are certain things that like I've taken from childhood with me, and I could hear but world peace it's not going to happen, or like whatever it might be. When it comes to the highest frequency or the best intention, it is in that moment, the highest frequency that you can reach, that you could potentially reach in that moment. It might not be completely world peace, but it's the highest frequency that can be reached in that space. So even setting the intention for the highest frequency for the good of all to be reached. It doesn't have to be this thought process of, crystal clear 100% accuracy. It can just simply be a better space than where they started.
Great answer. Holly.
Sorry, I always have follow-ups. Love that, by the way. So this is kind of the getting to doing things over Zoom versus in person aspect of things. So I don't know how many of you know this, but my first training that I did for a hypnosis training, we were at a hotel that was under construction, and there was a jackhammer that was going off constantly. Now, I know nothing, TJ was definitely there. I know nothing about hypnosis, right? I'm coming into this world of, I didn't even realize I was going to hypnosis training when I signed up for it. I just felt like I was supposed to sign up for this training, and it only occurred to me the day before to look up what this training was. So, completely out of my depth. So we get broken out into groups, and we're told to go out in the hall, or common areas, whatever, and hypnotize each other. And everybody I worked with would say, and as you hear the sound of the jackhammer, it allows you to go deeper and deeper, that sort of thing. And so I learned to hypnotize people using the jackhammer. And I thought that's how hypnosis worked, because I was very naive. And so my hardest moment was the first time I had to hypnotize somebody without the use of a jackhammer to help me. And, like most people are probably like, oh, how do you hypnotize somebody with a jackhammer in the background? Like mine was, how do you do it without? But one of the things that taught me is how much our assumptions really, really, really matter. Especially when it comes to this kind of work. And one of the things I've discovered is because, I've been so focused on the Zoom aspect of a lot of trainings, I personally have gotten better at hypnotizing people over Zoom than in person. Now, don't get me wrong, there are things about in person that I love that cannot be replicated on Zoom. But there are also some things that on Zoom cannot be replicated in person. Little techniques that TJ's, the master of like playing with the sound and that sort of thing. So it's, I guess, first of all, if you know your tool that you're using, know its strengths, know its weaknesses, and also know its dangers, its risks, all that sort of thing. That's important. Obviously you have to have your pre-talk of what if we get disconnected, that sort of thing. But I will say, even just doing rapport drills, I got to where for a while there, I could connect more powerfully through rapport with people on Zoom than in person, because it's what I was doing all the time. And I wasn't practicing in person. I was only practicing on Zoom. So I will say I am also convinced that most of us think Zoom's harder to do it on because, there's a physical distance. That means we can't possibly connect. But I think that that's just I don't think that's a real thing. It's a real thing if we make it a real thing. It's a real thing if we believe it. But I do know it is solidly possible to connect with somebody just as powerfully on the other side of the world as it is with the person who's standing 2 feet away from us. And once again, it's different. There are advantages to having somebody 2 feet, within 2 feet of you. But there are also advantages to having somebody on Zoom as well. So, I think as long as we get it in our head, every tool has its power, every tool has its place, and I'm going to take the tool that's currently in front of me and I'm going to make the most of it because I can, and I know it can work. I think that definitely helps.
100%. And I didn't realize that was your first training. I was there. that was that was interesting. Yes, that class we all learned a whole lot of stuff. And in the number of years that I've been doing this, both in person and online, and in some of the weirdest locations under the weirdest circumstances, when Dr. David pointed out anywhere, anytime, for any reason. Yeah, the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, whatever. And then I find myself working with somebody going 70 miles an hour down the freeway while they're having an ab reaction. Anytime, anywhere, for any reason. And then we get blessed with a wonderful face from down under. Oh, so good to see your face again, Miss Fran. And what a great, this is awesome. Elijah showed up, and then Fran shows up. my happy man. And did we get all our questions answered on the last two topics? Did Fran show up just in time to bring us a new question or topic?
Well, my biggest topic is why are we all so bad at treating ourselves? But I think I brought that up before. Why we're all so bad at doing work on ourselves. Or maybe other people
I
aren't.
don't know.
but
I think we're all
suspect
pretty
they
good
are.
at it, considering.
What I've found is people will take care of their pets, their cars, their houses better than themselves.
So how can we do something about that to put ourselves higher up on the list?
I'm going to throw my two centavos in really quick, and it came from a quote that I heard from Jim Rohn, where he says, it's not, I'll take care of you, you take care of me. It's, I want you to take care of you for me, and I will take care of me for you. Because if I don't take care of me, I can't help you when you need it. And if you don't take care of you for me, eventually you're going to need me for the wrong reasons.
That's really cool.
I love how I keep bumping my hand, but I definitely have something to say too. But first of all, I have to say, I think TJ just nailed it on the head right there. But you got to internalize it too, because it really is true. You know, when you look around this room, for example, if you were to look at yourself through our eyes, how much do you matter? You know, we sometimes get so close to ourselves that we don't realize how important that is. You know, obviously, just from a technical perspective, it's hard to work on ourselves because it's hard to get that distance. It's hard to, you know, I've heard TJ call it trying to be the driver and the passenger at the same time. You know, it's not meant to work. But, you know, if we think about it, is that by design? Is it because we're meant to reach out to people who care about us? Is it because we are meant to have needs so that we have a reason to connect? And sometimes the best gift you can give somebody is the ability to be of service to you.
Yes.
The ability to contribute and help, you know, and then you connect in a better way. Matthew Hussey says that the best way you could get somebody to like you is to ask them for a small favor.
Yep.
So, you know, like when you ask somebody for a small favor, you are not being a burden to them. You are giving them a gift. And it's one of the most precious gifts of vulnerability, of I trust you, that you could give to anybody. And, you know, I'm willing to let you influence me. And it could be a mutual thing too. You know, it's like, okay, you help me, I help you. You know, like you give them permission to ask you for help when you ask them for help sometimes too. And maybe they really need that permission. And you're leading by example. If you want an actual technique, though, the one that came to my mind, we did this in NLP, where you pull up your highest, you pull up your priorities, and hopefully I can remember exactly how this works, but you find the picture frame for every single one of your top priorities. So, find number one. Where is it located? What color is it? If you want, you could put a picture frame around it, memorize where it's at, and then say, where is the caring about myself picture? And then say, where should that be on the list? And so you can intellectualize it at this point. And then find what's currently in that location. So say, caring about myself, it should be quite high up there. Maybe it's number one. I could see an argument for maybe number 2, and maybe it's keeping my integrities number 1 or something like that. Like your top maybe 3 or so are probably all really, really, really important. And it might come down to personal preference, what order they should be in. But then what you do is you take the pictures, put them side by side, and you're going to take caring about myself, and you're going to go through, all of the colors, the temperatures, the sounds, all of that. You're going to, well, first, what I always do when I'm doing this process is I take pictures of both of them and say, so like, I think of it as like a video game or a computer file or whatever. I'm going to do a save as. So I can always go back to where I'm at any point if I decide I don't like the results.
Yep.
And then once I've done that, now I can play. So I'm going to take the number 2, and I'm going to take caring about myself. And I'm going to make caring about myself have all of the attributes of number 2 that allow it to be number 2. So is blue what makes it be allowed to be number 2, just as an example? Then I'm going to make it this blue. Is maybe I need to turn up the temperature or turn down the temperature. Maybe I need to turn up the sound. Maybe I need to make the sound a little bit different. And the most important thing is probably going to be where it's physically located. Once I've made it match the same, what I always do is I also then point to where I feel it. And then I imagine little files inside of, like filing cabinets or whatever inside of me. And I find where it's stored inside of me. And I tell myself, I'm allowed to move this. Move this to where, so like I said, if I'm making it number 2, say number 1 is my preserving my integrity. And number 2 is taking care of my having healthy boundaries and asking for help when I need it. I'm going to put it at number 2. I'm going to store that in my body where it needs to be. And then I'm going to take the picture with all of its new traits. And what some people will do is they'll blink back and forth several times. So I'm going to have it flash. I'm going to, whatever it may be. Or some people will also lay them on top of each other and connect them. I don't usually do that. For me, that doesn't have as powerful an effect. It kind of messes up number 3 or number 2 that's going to be number 3. But if that speaks to you, do that. And then I'm going to take, say it's number 8. I'm going to move it up to the physical location of where I'm going to ask myself, where is number 2, first impression? Reach out, touch it, move that picture into that location. And then, test it, close it, bring it up. If it's moving around still, you've got maybe some lessons that you need to internalize, so you could do magic frame on it, you could do some regression on it, whatever. But as long as it's sticking, as long as it's staying where it's supposed to be, close it, open it a few times, lock in its new location, and notice what happens. So, that's the mechanics of it. But step 1 is, telling yourself that when you do it, you're not just moving yourself into that place, because once again, we already know you care about people. There are some people out there that don't care about other people. And in our society, we are so worried about those predators that we, I think I've shared this quote before, but David Mitchell, one of my favorite comedians, said, basically, we live in a world where to save the life of reckless children, warnings are calibrated to their safety. And as a result, timorous children live in a state of perpetual terror. And I think that there's also, in order to teach extremely selfish, extremely predatory people to be good, decent human beings, moral warnings are calibrated to their standard. Whereas kind, decent human beings who are already givers live in a state of perpetual guilt. And it's not fair because that message wasn't meant for you. Those messages that have been said to you your entire life weren't meant for you. They were meant for somebody else who had a lesson that they needed to learn. So the way I always put it is there's wants and needs, right? And there's a scale. There's immediate needs, there's long-term needs, whatever. But if we're in a mutual relationship, your needs are going to sometimes trump my wants. But my needs are going to sometimes trump your wants as well. So like, if I want to go to the movies tonight, but you just broke your leg and need to be rushed to the ER, that's a need. It's going to take precedence over my desire to go to the movies tonight, just as an example. But it goes both ways. So if you are ever putting my wants ahead of your needs, something's wrong, you're in people pleaser mode, and you're hurting me too because I actually genuinely care about you and you're not communicating to me that you have a need and I have a mere want that's not really even that high anyway. So anyway, just a few thoughts.
Wow, that was brilliant. Thank you, Holly. Absolutely amazing stuff.
Agreed. Anybody else got anybody else want to follow up after Holly?
That's a really hard act to follow.
Yes, even I'm quiet.
Accepting compliments, accepting kindnesses from other people.
Oh, yes. Lenora.
I was going to add on to what Holly so beautifully shared. And this is just from my own personal knowing you, Fran, from, oh my gosh, how long have I known you now? I've known you and Elijah the same time, and when Triple C started, so like 211 weeks worth that I've known you lovely people. And I would say in this case to possibly look in the rearview mirror, because you have worked on yourself so much, and you have blossomed and bloomed and radiated in the most exquisite ways that I've been privileged to see you over the last number of 211 weeks. And then even seeing, I know for me, I can get really wrapped in my head going like, oh, you're not doing enough, Lenore, you're not focused enough. And it's like, wait, who's talking here? Who's criticizing that I'm not doing enough, or that I'm not changing enough, or I'm not making myself a priority enough? And allowing myself to recognize that how I do it is how I do it. This is my story. I get to be the writer. And I love the one that you had shared about staring in the mirror and doing self-hypnosis in the mirror several weeks ago. You mentioned it. And recognizing, even in those moments, I am doing enough. You are doing so more than enough. And it's exquisite, and it's beautiful, and it's incredible. And being able to acknowledge that and to let it resonate through your body without judgment is extraordinarily powerful.
Well said.
Wow. I'm just wondering how 3-chair would actually relate to doing nice things for yourself.
Ooh.
And accepting compliments from other people and practicing, allowing other people to be nice to you. Could be interesting.
Past, present, and future in 3-chair. And I'm going to jump in real quick on accepting compliments, because I run into that so much with my clients. When you visualize compliments as a wrapped present, if somebody comes up and gives you a wrapped present and says, "This is for you," and you watch how people accept those presents, and oftentimes it's a volley. "Oh, thank you. Here, it's back." Or they'll brush it off. "Oh, I don't deserve this present," and set it on the ground. Or, "Why are you giving me this present? You should probably keep it." Which one do you find yourself being the most? And some people give compliments because they're insecure and they're fishing for compliments. "Oh, your hair looks wonderful," and the person goes, "Why, thank you." And they're going, "Aren't you going to compliment mine? I just had my hair done." And if it's fishing, you can see that when you understand the mechanics behind it. But when you start hearing compliments and realize that the person is handing you a wrapped present, how do you want to treat that present handed to you? Lenora.
I love this one. And this has been very challenging for me when it comes to compliments. And what I have found, especially when you start to hang out with people like you, amazing people, is we can share compliments to each other and we find ways to allow ourselves to receive them. That being said, when we leave this lovely group, we go and share it with other people and they don't receive it. It's incredibly difficult. And it's not like, oh, they didn't take my compliment. It's literally, it feels like this, you're pouring your heart, you're saying something that's really, that you're really considering and you're very passionate about, or you love someone so much and they're like, no. And they're so dismissive of it that you're trying to pour and it hurts that there's such a rejection to it. And I think that also goes in with not being, when we have people that, yes, people give us compliments and we can receive them. I think there's also something that goes back the other way where you try to give something to somebody else and they don't receive it and you feel that disconnect, but not only do you feel the disconnect, you feel the aggravation and the frustration because you love this person, you care for this person so much and they can't receive it. Holy shit, guys, I won't lie. This thing drives me bananas on the regular. Drives me up the wall. To the point that it can clearly frustrate me. And there's a difference in just like, it's not a compliment. It's an openingness. It's a reveal. It's an intimacy. It's a vulnerability that you're wanting to have. You're wanting to connect with this other person, whether it's a friend or a significant other, whatever it is. And when you can't connect, I'm going to leave it at that one.
Holly.
So a random thought that I remembered, in face reading, if you look at the section of your ear that's basically from conception to birth, which is for women it's on the right side, for men it's on the left side on the ear, and you're basically looking at the cartilage kind of closest to your inner ear. If that is very thick, you are wanted by both of your parents and you're able to accept compliments. If it is very thin, it means at some point during pregnancy, you picked up on the idea, and it could be a very minor reason. But at some point, maybe your parents were afraid of the stigma, maybe they were afraid of the finances, there's a million and one reasons that to the adult probably felt like just a second of doubt. But to the baby, they internalized it as I'm not wanted. And Lillian says, people who have that trait, whether they, knew it or not, really struggle to receive compliments because they have this from birth feeling of not being wanted.
Yep.
I'm not wanted, I don't deserve to be here. So you could compliment them on what they do and they can accept it. Oh, you did a really good job on that project that you worked really hard on. And they might be able to internalize that. Might be. Not always, but they might be able to. But if you start actually complimenting them on who they are, it's really, really hard to internalize it. And it's a wounding that goes back to before birth. And once again, like in my case, my mom wanted to have 15 kids, but I have that very thin cartilage, but it wasn't that she didn't want kids. It was just, she was going through a stressful time for her health. And she was, there was other stuff going on that translated to me, And so I think step one, if you can regress back to cause and go back to the young version of yourself and let her, in a lot of our cases, or him, whatever the case may be, know this isn't your fault. There is no such thing as a kid that isn't actually wanted and needed in the world. It's just that, if you could understand, if you could see these adults, they're overwhelmed, they're scared. They might be embarrassed if they had the kid out of wedlock, whatever the case may be. But it's not even that their parents really genuinely didn't want you. It's just that they were going through their own stuff. And so, it's kind of like an informed child kind of situation. And by the way, I think 3-chair therapy is brilliant too, because often when you're sitting there receiving the compliment, you can't receive it. But then the person who's observing could say, what are you talking about? That's totally true. What's wrong? It's so, and also when you could sit in the person who's giving the compliment and you could see that this compliment is completely genuine, it changes it. Now, I will also throw out there too, sometimes, when we have these protections in place, it's for a reason. And part of the reason some of us might have a protection against compliments is because there are insincere compliments. TJ gave one example of, I want you to give me back a compliment. But there are other reasons somebody may compliment you. Maybe it's, you're their boss and they're having a fight with a coworker and they want you to take their side. Or maybe you happen to be really, really rich and they just want you to pay for them to go on a trip with you. Or, there's a million and one insincere reasons people give compliments. And so it is valid that we're filtering out those insincere compliments. But once again, that could very easily be handled by saying, hey, you've given me a gift. I'm accepting it as a gift. And if later you try to say it's not a gift, I'm sorry, it was a gift. I'm not buying into your frame that you're pretending that, this was something on that's owed to you. But if you sit in someone who is looking at you with genuine love, giving you this wonderful gift because they mean it and because they love you and they want you to have it. There's that old Kabbalah story of, say somebody who loves you a lot, who's really, really rich, decides to throw a very lavish feast. And they're just so excited to see you come in and it's got all your favorite foods and they've placed this magical spell on it that, they give you just the right amount of calories, just the right amount of nutrients, no matter what you eat. It's the best feast ever. And you walk in and you feel like you're unworthy and you feel guilty and you can never repay it, so you don't eat a single thing. It's like the way you repay it is through your enjoyment, because they love you so much. They just want to see you happy. They want to see you become the best version you can. They want to give you gifts because of how much they love you. So now I will say I struggle to receive compliments, but even more so, I struggle to give compliments because I'm in my head of, I have all these genuine compliments I want to give, but if they give it to me first, now it feels like I'm just are they going to fill the volley? Even though it's genuine, I know it's genuine, but are they going to fill the volley? I just was in my head and now I notice they're here because they talked to me. Or, I might notice 3 things I want to say to 3 different people, but if I give them rapid fire, are they going to be comparing to each other? But if I only give one of them, are the other people going to be like, well, how come she didn't compliment me? Or, so I've always got this living rent free in my head of, it is genuine, but how do I communicate it in a way that it's received as genuine? And I'm still working on that too. So it's on both sides, but yeah, I think as long as the intentions at least are pure, you're halfway there. And it's also important, not to get a big head about something that's, we start thinking we're the best thing ever, and then it turns out we're not the best thing ever. But, I don't think, for example, I don't think you have to worry about that at all. You never take it that way. Once again, that message is not meant for you. That message is meant for other people. But, always have that balance, always stay grounded, always, double check everything. But it's okay to feel good about yourself and to recognize that you're doing good work, and you don't have to be perfect to accept it either. You just have to be having good intentions, and that's good enough.
Good stuff.
Wow, Holly, your wisdom's just amazing. And you triggered something, a thought in me about compliments. If you follow the compliment with a question, oh, your hair looks great today. If you follow it maybe with a question that the other person can elaborate on, maybe it enables it to be accepted more. Like, your hair looks great today. Tell me about what you did, or tell me how it looks, what's behind it. So maybe asking some questions will allow the person to actually see it in themselves a bit more. Thank you.
And get good at giving compliments. It's not hard to find something to compliment people on if you practice. I know, because I do it all the time. But I'll explain more after we hear from Mark. Mark.
Well, just an insight that I just had listening to this is that sometimes I do an exercise to get the ego out of the room, and of quality that we that we have admired in people. But when somebody gives you a compliment, I think they're recognizing that they have the same vibe. Like, wow, you're really good at this. It might mean alternatively that that there's a vibe there. There's a positive connection, and oh wow, you're really generous. And the person, if they accept a compliment, again, it's like a gift. You don't refuse a gift, basically. And but more so that when you compliment somebody, you're recognizing something in yourself that vibes. This person recognized that because you might have 1,000 wonderful qualities, and they compliment you on one because they vibe with it. Okay, they recognize some of that generosity within themselves, and that could be, again, a very positive thing. Like friends that ask more questions. Like I said, Dad, I thank you for seeing that I'm generous. But what were some times in your life where you were generous as well? Recognizing that they're recognizing something in you that they also have in themselves. Does that make sense? Okay.
And a little something from us guys for you ladies. With all the stuff that has gone on in the world in the last, since feminism tried to push things on, it's become a little more challenging to give you ladies compliments. And I've found I've got to do flyby compliments a lot of times to not get that look of, well, what's that supposed to mean? It meant your hair looks nice today. Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, your hair looks nice today, and I'm going to leave now. So I've gotten really good at what I call flyby compliments. I'll see something worth complimenting on guys and girls and walk by and just, hey, that shirt looks really good on you, and keep walking. Because A, I meant it, but B, sometimes if there's one of those corner mirrors or something where I can see the person, watching people's reaction when you walk by and give a flyby compliment and they're like, thank you. Whoever you were, like, and you didn't want anything in return, and you don't even give them time to do the volley return. So, another little part to add to it.
Yes, they're really cool. The supermarket compliments as you're flying by.
Yes.
They make an impact. And getting into the habit of doing that makes you more aware of everything around you, I think.
Yes.
A good policy.
Well, and it also, the more you do it, the easier it is to have conversations with people, because you notice things about people on the fly. You have the ability to compliment them on so many different things. And I've said it many times, being a motorcycle rider and being 6'4", when I'm walking around in my leathers and my boots, and now all of a sudden I'm 6'8", and got my helmet and all this stuff, I can still start conversations with people that normally wouldn't talk to me, because I have that ability to find something quickly to compliment them on.
When you become more relaxed and natural with it, it's easier for the other person to accept as well. Yeah,
so you're not walking up going, hi, your hair looks really nice. And that awkward silence, and everybody's like, oh, okay, well. But we unfortunately have to end up with me complimenting all of you guys for showing up as much as you do and making Triple T what it is. It's not me. I just hold a space for you guys to show up, and if I didn't have you guys here, we wouldn't have episode 211, because I can only talk to myself for so long. Just saying. So thank you for giving up your precious commodity of time. I will always thank you for that. There are so many other things that you could be doing with your time. And for those of you that are out in YouTube, love you, Mom. And everybody else in YouTube, love you too. Not as much as I love my mom, because my mom is amazing. But for those of you that are on YouTube or watching the recording, if you would please hit the like button, share this with other people, not for my glory, but if you know somebody that could benefit from the stuff that we talk about on here, it's a free resource. Please use it. I truly mean that. And if you got something that we didn't cover this week that you hear about on the week, please come back and bring it up in hour number 2. I love this stuff. We get so many good topics and questions and comments and answers. Why do I have open mic, open platform on hour 2? Because I get to learn as well. So thank you guys for helping expand my universe. With that,
Compliments to all. You are all so special.
yes.
You are all so special. That's my compliment to each and every one of you guys.
And I love you guys immensely. Please have an amazing week. Looking forward to seeing your beautiful smiling faces back here in 7 glorious days. Until then, live well, laugh often, know that I love you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, all.
Thanks, CJ.